Good evening. Today is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. The time is 7 o'clock p.m. The meeting in the City of Greensburg Redevelopment Commission is called to order. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. If everyone would stand, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the table in the back of the room. Roll call. Judy, would you conduct roll call, please?
Ken Dorrance.
Present.
Jamie Humphrey.
Here.
Carol Foley. Darren Burker.
Here.
David Weigel.
Present.
Mark Bauer.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve minutes of our October 6th, 2022 meeting. We've had those. Hopefully we've had a chance to review them. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If there are not any corrections to the minutes, they stand approved as presented. First item under old business, Bill Evans, Beacon Builders. Discussion of our residential development project.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to give you a little bit brief description of where we're at in the process, along with why we're here this evening. The last few months, we've done several things. We had a brief topographic survey taken on the property. We also revised the layout a little bit to make sure it matched the boundary and so forth, which is no big deal. We also researched some of the piping that is out in the perimeter of the property, more specifically the sanitary sewer and the storm sewer. The water is nearby, so that's not a challenge. We did prepare a preliminary grading plan in order to establish building pad heights based upon what we think the 100-year flood elevation of the ponds are out there. So we've got to that point. We also determined that we'll need a lift station for the project. So we are now researching what the best location of the lift station would be in regard to the lots and to the Veterans Boulevard there. We have met with the mayor and Ron a few times on this project, got their insight and their input, and just to keep the communication going and so forth. So we have made major progress on the items that I've mentioned. One thing that we have looked at is the drainage. That's the biggest. One of the biggest obstacles that we're going to have out there. But we feel confident in the way that we're going to try to slow down the drainage to the offsite, because there's two pipes that go under Veterans Highway. We'd like to slow the water so we're not impacting those pipes downstream. So we're looking into that. We've had our engineers start the process on that to try to help with that. So with that being said, we've we actually had a plan put together that was really good. That we had a local contractor that did excavating, and he does excavating. He basically can do it all: the storm, the sanitary, the water. He can subcontract the curbs, asphalt, so forth. And so we had them do a preliminary bid on the project to ensure everything was, from a financial standpoint, was going to work. But other than that, they also came up with dirt calculations that are on the site. Okay, with the dirt calculations, with the site being the west side of the site, if you go out there and you look at it, it's lower than the east side of the project by quite a bit. Just to give you an idea of how high our pads have to be is the veterans, the road at the southwest corner of the property, we need to be about a foot higher than that with our pad elevations. And then our homes would be built about a half a foot higher than that, okay? So if you go out there and you're driving out there and you look at that and you're thinking, wow, that's 3 to 4 foot higher than the existing elevation. So our plan was to excavate from the east side to the west and make sure we had the dirt that we needed on that. We thought it would be a balanced site. Well, after the contractor did the research and review of the dirt quantities and we looked at it, we had determined that the site is short. The site's gonna be short 24,000 yards. 24,000 yards, basically, you take that and you divide that by 12 to 15, then that'll tell you how many, dump truck loads that we're probably looking close to what, 2,000, I think, on that. It's quite a bit. It's a large amount. So when we were looking at this, we came up with an idea. I looked at it, and instead of taking and getting truck loading, because I can tell you it would that much money for that. Used to you could get a truckload of dirt very cheap, but nowadays with people being busy and dirt, people want a lot of money for dirt nowadays. The trucking's the most expensive, and 2 years ago, we paid $250 a truckload to get dirt into on a project. We did it for a day just to get a project completed, and that was quite a bit of money. Now, with that we're looking at today, we're looking at probably maybe $350 to $400 truckload. That's them taking it and then dumping on the site. Plus, then we need to excavate it. So we sit down and we came up with an idea. And we pitched it to the mayor and Ron in a meeting a couple weeks ago, just to get their thoughts. And the first thing they said is, well, we understand what you're talking about, but we'd like for you to come forward in front of the RDC to discuss it and see what their thoughts are. So that's the reason why we're here this evening. And to also answer any questions you might have in regard to the project, whether it be timing or how things are going from that end. Our idea is to expand the pond, the west pond, to the south, and to use the dirt that we would pull from the pond to have our site be balanced. So what we did is the mayor asked me to he says if you could draft something up that would show a building that would be like a Logan Steakhouse with the parking that's required. So what I did is I went and looked at two parcels, one in the Logan Steakhouse in Columbus and the one up in Noblesville. And I basically counted the parking stalls and the square footage of the building. So I came up with a plan that would show you where this would be the building, this would be the parking area, okay? And then on the north side of that would be the area. This would be the area. This is the property line that you folks have now. And this is the water. And this is the edge of the water. And this would be the banking. This would be the banking for where we're gonna excavate. I'll give you the.
Would that be would that provide the 24,000 yards?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
So it wouldn't have to be trucked too far, just from
What
1 feet or 1,000 feet or?
what happens is they excavate it, they put it in a truck, they take it and they compact it. That alone to dig that pond and to place it is $140,000. So we are still gonna spend $140,000 to have that dug, that material put in place and compacted for building sites. with that being said, let me give you some stats on this. The area of the easement that we're asking for an easement, we're not asking for land, we're asking for easement because it's gonna benefit this lot in the future, what we're doing here. It's a win-win for both the subdivision development along with this lot here. So what we would do is, this is a 1.2 acres from this easement line here up along your north line. But we're not impacting, all we're doing is going to cut the area that we need, put in a safety ledge, and we will cut down as much as we need to get the material that we need. And then what we would do is we would slope it, we'd put the erosion control blanket on it, it would look like a new construction site. The water surface area is 0.89 acres, okay? All right? So outside this easement here, left on the property, is 2.89 acres, okay? So if you have 2.89 acres and you are having 0.89 acres surface area, that's plenty for detention for this area, for this building site. So when you get that, so what happens, there's twofold, okay? Before this pond extension, there was no detention areas planned for this area.
So
basically
they
what
put
you
one
would,
in if they,
that's correct. Or they will have to prove that these ponds are big enough. With this being said, with what we're doing here, this 0.89 acres will be provided for them. We would do the calculations at a 80% impervious area to make sure, we would make sure in our calculations that this new excavated area would be suffice for the new building. When you do that, and we all know that, that actually adds value to this lot because we're saving them $150,000 of excavating costs. Okay? What we're also doing is this lot actually, it's got storm, sanitary, sewer, water, and it also has the detention designed for it. So it's easier, we find, it'd be easier to find a buyer for that lot once it's complete. So we think that our solution to our need would be as a benefit to the city in the RDC for the future lot that's gonna be out there. One other thing is, this lot's low right here. So while what will happen is, we're going to probably have some extra topsoil and things of that nature on our side. And if we can work it out with them being out there and through the cities, this will be the responsibility of the city, but they could fill in that low area and make that area a little bit nicer because there'll be a future access to this road here. So that'll give them an idea of how that area is gonna be. So basically, all we're here this evening is to ask for you to review us to have an easement that we can take the material out of that area. And we would put it back, we would agree to, put the erosion control blanket and those types of things in place. And put it, actually what's out there now, I should have said this beginning. What's out there now is some grown up weeds. And then basically the tree line follows the grown up weeds. So that'll be cleared. So you're gonna have a cleared area, so actually that'll be a potentially better for a buyer too, because they don't have to deal with that. That cost is included would be included in our total cost of our clearing limits that we'd be doing for the project. So, did I explain that clear enough? I mean, do you have any questions or anything I can?
So your control structures you're putting in for that, because you're using the pond as your retention too, right?
We are using the pond, yes.
So your control structure would incorporate that, outlot then as well?
Yeah, it has to, yeah. Yeah, our control structure will, and yes, because right now, we think we haven't done the whole numbers on everything, but with the way the ponds, how large they are, and how we've witnessed, you know, it's how the ponds fluctuate a little bit, and the water lines out there, the ponds aren't as maxed out, you know, from a visual standpoint. We'll get the numbers, but we think that by doing this, it's really gonna ensure that this lot can be developed for sure without any areas. And then once we get the control structure on this pond here, we're actually gonna do a control structure on the other pond when we get to there and connect the two ponds, because they're not connected right now. Yeah, through the pipe system that is out there, there's a ditch that the pond has to fill up to a certain,
So it's not, like a.
it's got spillway,
It's a
yeah,
spillway.
it's got spillway, and it's actually causing problems out there for the apartments. So with our overall design, and it'll probably be in section 2 or probably in section 2 when we do it, is when these two ponds will be together. So then you'll have by the time we're done, the city will know how those ponds work. Right now, I don't think anybody knows how those ponds work.
They're never intended to be retention ponds anyway, they're just ball pits.
Yeah.
Where's the emergency overflow?
The emergency overflow for this will be in this area right here, because that's gonna be the low point. It's below this street, Veterans Highway right here. These elevations were here, we're gonna have our pads 1.5 foot higher than that road right there. The other thing is the cover over the pipes, the dump to go into the ponds, we had to maintain a 2.5 to 3 foot cover over those pipes. That is another reason why we had to raise the site. These ponds control a lot of things out there that we had to do to make sure that the site worked. And that's why we need to do the mass earth on that project. And as you said, no one planned for it to be a residential area, they just planned for it to be a borrow pit and going down the road. Now we're turning into that, yeah.
So again, you said the main thing you'd like us is just to
Basically,
consider and create an easement.
yeah, we would need an easement for the pond, that we're going to cut out the material. We just need your permission to cut out the material that we need for our site, and to put the banks in, and to reseed it, you know, seed it, make it look like it's supposed to be. And then, that's what we would need to complete that project. The reason, when we sat down with Mayor and Ron, I said, you know, that's a lot of money that is being spent, and you folks have been so nice, kind to us, and we worked out such a good deal for both of us. We'd hate, with the extra cost of the lift station and some of the other fees that, you know, that we are gonna have to pay, this is quite a bit of money, because we already are paying $140,000 for off-site digging, and with the trucking, it would be, we couldn't do it, we just couldn't do it with that. To get it, the type of homes that people need in the area, and to make sure it worked for you guys as a tax income, as well as us be able to sell the homes.
Is there much required, Chris, for us to create an easement for them?
No, we'll just need a legal survey, so we have the proper description of the easement, and you guys to vote to approve the authorization of the easement and the action requested.
Bill, would that easement be a permanent easement or a temporary easement?
No, what are you doing for plating on that piece of property that they're gonna build a restaurant?
That has already been divided off as a separate parcel, so.
So as far as you're concerned, it's already zoned and platted and everything's good, right?
Yeah, it's a viable parcel.
Then that would just be an easement that would allow the subdivision to use it for drainage.
And that could be temporary, correct?
It could be temporary, yeah.
I don't know if we can, Ron, cause
I'd
it's.
say I'd
I
say
don't
it's
think you-
probably a
No,
permanent.
it's a permanent because
Yeah.
there's the other reason
You
too
couldn't go
is-
in and fill that easement in, cause it would mess up the draining, it would mess up the detention, so it has to be a permanent easement.
Yeah.
I guess that would all depend on the easement language.
Well, I mean, it could, and I'm not, I'd have to bone up on whether or not there's a stormwater / utility type easement that would run permanently with the property. My gut tells me there probably is, but that's, so conceptually, the easement that you're offering is to allow them to, to excavate and utilize whatever construction means necessary to effectuate drainage and potential stormwater utility in that defined area. I'll find some way to make it cool, but yeah, it's not hard to do an easement. So
The easement actually stays with the restaurant property.
it would stay with the restaurant property and it would run with that property. But I would say I do agree with his assessment that it sounds like what you're giving to the restaurant is going to be extremely beneficial to them as well. And the more you develop that area with things like nice restaurants and paths, the easier it is for this man to sell houses out there. So, I mean, it sounds like a very good solution to what could be a very expensive problem.
Well, no, from the engineering standpoint, I think as long as the calculations work and that what you would hate to have happen is that you come back and it's a little short retention, then the restaurant property would still have to do something additional on top of that. So I'd like to make sure that we're really robust in our calculations, are very conservative as far as, and that really is mostly to do with the impervious surface for the most part.
Yeah, we had talked to Ron about that. We were gonna make sure we were at the 80% calculations on that.
Because like I said, it's all parking lot, building, and just a very little.
Yeah, this little green space here, which I left out on purpose, if there was a need to do a dry detention area or something, rain garden or something like that. But in this case, I did the quick math in my head and said, okay, you have 2.89 acres, you have an acre, then you have the storage. I mean, we're talking, from a storage standpoint, we're at 941.7 with the surface, and our top of bank's at, hold on a minute. Our top of bank, there's gonna be 5 feet of storage in that area for an acre. That's pretty good for a 2.89 acre area.
You got your freeboard, 2 feet, but you still have to get the 3 foot. Yeah, I mean.
It's close. We'll prove it. That was
As long as that's the thing, and cause the opposite, they can't, if it doesn't work, what, you have to end up doing is do some type of underground parking lot retention. You've seen that, I think the hospital did that. That was what you probably end up having to deal with that a lot, but if you can make this work, he's right, it becomes a benefit to that parcel as far as less development they would have to do.
So do we need a motion tonight to create?
Yeah, I would say what I would ask for is a motion to approve the creation of the easement for the purposes of assisting in drainage and dirt collection for the residential project.
The only other thing is erosion control and permitting wise, when you're doing that work.
it will be during, well, that's what I was gonna get to.
That's your permit.
We'll do that during the first phase of the project, because we're gonna do that. We'll do that first. We'll get that done, we'll get the outlet taken care of, we'll do that. We'll do it with our first phase of our project. We won't execute the easement until approval from the city agencies. So we wouldn't be able to get on the site until all our documents are in place and approved. That's what we're asking. That's what we're asking.
Right. My guess is that it probably would, you may have a temporary construction in order for them to remove that dirt.
Yeah, we would ask for a temporary construction easement of 25 feet outside the easement. We would,
They're gonna need to get on that parcel to be able to move that dirt around.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would ask for, is a motion to approve the easement and all necessary documents to facilitate the dirt movement requested by the builder.
Anybody care to make that motion?
Thank you, Ken. Second? Thank you, Darren. Any discussion about that? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about that right now, Bill, or not?
No,
Okay.
we're just gonna continue, doing, we've got the guys coming on site here in the next week or so to do the drilling for the test holes for the soil. And then once that takes place, we'll be getting the final plans
Okay.
taken care of.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to new business. Mr. May, city engineer, discussion of Broadway
Thank
Street property.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't think it's any secret to anybody in the community anymore that the city is looking at purchasing property on North Broadway on the west side in the area of the intersection of Barishaw. And the parcel the city's identified is about 20 acres total for the street department project and the fire department project. They need about 10 acres. They're looking at having another 10 acres for future use, either to sell it or to find a compatible use that would go with the city's campus that we're developing there. The city is asking the Redevelopment Commission for a commitment of up to $300,000. And that commitment could be, I guess, a stipend or a grant. It could be purchase of half of that extra 10 acres. It could be in different forms. As things are running at the moment, it looks like that purchase may close yet this year, but it'll be very close to the end of the year. The actual need for cash may not occur until next year. Could be January of next year. But in the interest of the city keeping the other project moving forward, if you're so inclined to commit up to $300,000, it will help. And then the details of what that means, I think, could be negotiated at a later date. The discussion has been in the past that you all might purchase 5 acres, and then you own 5 acres of ground. At the moment, nobody's defined which 5 acres it might be. I think we call that negotiating.
Put a street, say towards the street.
Towards Broadway. One of the things that's gonna happen with the street department and fire department projects is there's gonna be a new street built across there, all the way generally to the west end of that.
Will it be in line with Barishaw? Or not quite?
Well, nothing's been designed yet, so it'll be close. My vision has been that, because I don't like driving down the street and having the street name changed for no apparent reason, if it's gonna be in line with Barishaw, it ought to be Barishaw. My opinion, it's not a final answer. So,
It needs to be a line.
yeah.
I don't care what you name the street, I don't like streets that change names at intersections either, but
Yeah,
I'm talking
Very
like you were
confusing.
considered like the traffic flow.
yeah.
Safety and everything else makes sense.
Cause where is the actual center of that property?
somewhere,
That existing road looks like it's more on the south end, right?
and it maybe moves to the north, I don't know. I don't think anybody has any detailed design in hand at this point. It's more conceptual.
So we're not actually buying the property, we're donating.
I didn't say that. I think the mayor would be very,
I guess who's gonna control the property? Maybe that's a better way to phrase the question.
if the mayor could know that you could make available up to $300,000, it's gonna help him do the deal. I think there's opportunities to negotiate what this means. I think if you say, we'll buy 5 acres, I think that would be an honest negotiation.
I think we should give the 300,000 and negotiate the details on it as we go, whether it's a 5 acres or however we want to handle that. To me, it would be, probably make more sense if we were trying to sell that property, just sell it as 10 acres as opposed to, and let that be broken down if it needs to be, as opposed to us trying to sell 5 acres.
I suppose you could find undivided interest to do that. There's different ways this deal could be done. As to Ken's thought, kind of depends on what the guy buying it wants. Maybe somebody only wants 5 acres, maybe somebody wants 10. When that time comes, I think, again, you negotiate those things.
So you're basically looking for a commitment.
I'd entertain a motion to commit up to $300,000. Anybody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie.
On that land, is anything gonna happen to KB Foods?
No.
Are they gonna stay where they're at?
Let me re-answer that. I'm not aware of anybody talking about anything that would impact KB Foods.
Say, I would agree, nothing in this project would necessarily impact it. However, you are going to substantially change the landscape of what's there. And it wouldn't surprise me if Kroger didn't take a look at whether or not it might be beneficial for them to make changes or some alteration to what could become significantly more valuable dirt than it is currently. You know, particularly since depending on food production, and this is pure speculation on my part, it's just looking at it and knowing what's going in there. It wouldn't surprise me if Kroger didn't make a business decision that there are other viable locations to build a plant in the area that would work as well.
They can't grow anymore in their existing lot.
Right, they're very landlocked for where they
But
are.
yet they recently invested $19 million into the Creek Creek plant.
They had to because they expanded from when they
Yeah,
originally
well,
were
they
built.
could have moved it then.
They could have moved, so they've made a commitment to the site.
Yeah, they put money in it, so.
I believe that Honda has, or Honda, Kroger has looked at that, buying that extra site in the past and backed out of it. However, as you point out, with the changes going in there that may make it more appealing to them, they may see that the property slipping away.
Maybe they want 10 acres, who knows?
Well, and they may, I mean, it may be an opportunity for them to expand as well. I mean, you essentially end up with an industrial user with a fire station on site. I mean,
One of the things that directly benefits the redevelopment commission is, as this project moves forward, the city will be moving fire protection, sanitation, and street department much, much closer to your attainment areas. So you're likely to get better service out of promoting this whole thing.
I have a legal question, Ken. If we were to using this to purchase the property, can we purchase property outside of our territory?
well, this isn't outside your territory, I don't think.
It's outside the attainment area, is that the right term?
Oh, the new one or the old one?
Of both,
Oh.
the original 3 and the 3 expanded.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, I certainly can find out.
You've
I
done,
think you
you've done.
can.
Cause every place else, when we've had, the property was within our area, yeah.
You've done projects outside.
We've done projects
Benefit the
outside
area.
and benefit the area.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe that the statutory scheme says that so long as the action that you're taking is intended to benefit the area that you were designated to benefit, then you are permitted to do it, but I will double check.
It's pretty, I think it's pretty vague, but I'm just curious, I hadn't thought about that till now, so.
All right, we have a motion on the floor that's seconded. Any further discussion or question? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
A little more information, kind of on that same topic. Last month, you asked for an additional appropriation because you're not out of appropriation, but you're getting close. That is on the agenda for the council for next Wednesday evening. Assuming it's successful there, it would come up on second reading in their December meeting, so you would, you've got good with cash and you'll be getting a settlement from the county next month in addition, so if you should have appropriation before the end of the year.
Did they indicate when they would actually need it? You said maybe next year.
The information I had received was the city's, I think, likely to take title of the property yet this year, but the cash arrangements can run into next year. And, so your commitment may not be exercised before next year.
I think that's an accurate statement.
All right. Thank you.
One other item to share with you, you're getting ready to look at claims. There was a claim on the list of $10,000. That is the result of an emergency ingress and egress easement that was obtained from Lake Point Apartments to permit our public safety people to enter through the existing apartment driveways and enter into the residential agreement. In exchange for that easement, you all agreed to plant trees along Veterans Way. And that's the invoice for the planting of said trees.
So the trees got planted? Are the trees planted?
Yes.
All right, so the next item is approval of claims. All of those claims, along with all of those water bills, comes to $12,524.73. I'd entertain a motion to pay our bills.
So moved.
Thank you, Darren. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ken. Those in favor of paying our bills signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Looks like that takes us to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting will be Thursday, December 1st, 2022, right here at 7 o'clock p.m. Any other questions? If not, we'll adjourn. Thank you all for being here.